So in this video I played Batman Arkham Asylum for the first time. I'll be giving you an overall review to let everyone know if it's still worth playing 14 years later. I actually didn't realise it was that old, and of course this is the first game in the Arkham series, with 3 other main games releasing in the years later. Now I must mention that this is the Game of the Year remastered version, with upgraded graphics and visuals, and 4 extra challenge maps that already allow for the game to hold up in present day in terms of visuals and extra content. And like I do most of the time, I'll be playing through the entire series for the first time in order, just like I have done with Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Resident Evil, Tomb Raider. You get the point. If you go on to enjoy this review, then let me know by tapping that like button down below. And if you like story games, then that's what this channel is all about. I have various reviews on an array of games. Without further ado, let's jump into Batman Arkham Asylum, starting off with the gameplay. Now the combat in this game, which you of course do a lot of, is definitely one of, if not the best aspect of this game. I was honestly so surprised at how smooth and fast paced the fighting in this game was. Bearing in mind it was sort of this game and Assassin's Creed 2 that really started this free flow combat system, with them both releasing in the same space of 3 months. Both of them following this combat in those games that influenced so many other games in the later years. Though with Arkham Asylum and how it uses very quick moves, implementing all kinds of punches and kicks, it does feel like you're a lot faster on your feet, which makes sense as you aren't using a long sword like Assassin's Creed. Some say it's just button mashing, but really they did it so well and has good responsiveness, with the majority of the combat being used on a giant group of enemies swarming you, and a bit of focus because anyone you take your eye off can strike when you're taking someone else down. So it feels very immersive and extremely fun, which superhero games do really well at. Of course, the moves you perform are going to be over the top and a lot stronger than the opponent because you are a superhero, and it also becomes a bit more of a challenge to know what way to take down different enemies, as they don't all follow the same attacking style, for example. Though because this is the first game, it doesn't have all the features to help you. For example, the animation to finish someone off when they're on the ground is a bit slow and slows down the pace of the combat, but also allows for an enemy to attack and you can't do anything because you also can't cancel. I know they refine it and add more moves to help counter more enemies at once, which helps a lot with the giant groups you always fight. And overall there could have been more to it to help you, but it provides for more of a challenge that requires good timing to know when it's best to perform something. That a lot of people will prefer the slightly more realistic movement, as real as it can be, compared to the newer games. And overall the combat is so good for a base system that's been built on over the years, which is really fun and satisfying to play. It's not just the hands-on combat, but Batman can also have a good variety of gadgets to use. Of course the iconic Batarang, which is very easy to use and locks on with a target. Explosive gel allows to blow up breakable walls, which are conveniently placed around the map to get around a locked area, blow up enemies or unlock items. There's also the line launcher, that's basically a zip line, and that's mixed with the grapple gun to launch yourself up to high places, and it's so fun to string around with, which also allows to hide from other enemies. But as you progress, it seems like the enemies become a bit smarter and start placing explosives on the gargoyles around the map, which you commonly grapple onto and glide kick enemies from, slowly becoming used to Batman's techniques and patterns, which is a really cool and immersive feature. There's a really good amount of stealth that's very balanced throughout the game with the combat. It doesn't mean there's a huge variety in the stealth though. It's a choke animation when you sneak up behind someone and a silent takedown. Not any crazy grab over a barrier or use of the environment, but it is satisfying to do. In terms of the enemy types, there's a good amount that become more advanced as you progress, so it's not always easy as you become used to the game. The usual thug can pick up weapons and throw items, others use pipes for melee weapons, armed thugs use snipers and open gun lockers, knife thugs show up a bit later in the game and must be stunned because they block all attacks, and lots more, adding to that variety. There's a good amount of boss fights you come up against in the game, without any spoilers. They aren't anything crazy and they could be a bit better. I know this is the first game and they probably didn't branch out, but they probably did a bit more in the later games, but it just seems like they stuck to a very simple style. Although they could be better, they do all feel different and weren't just all the same, which is good. Of course you gain XP as you play from combos, simply taking down an enemy, collectibles like the Riddler trophy, so you can easily upgrade your combat a bit by increasing armor, helping stealth but not really adding a huge variation to it, as I mentioned, increase combo score, etc. So there's a lot. Now let's move on to the story of Batman Arkham Asylum. Now Batman's main goal throughout the story is to basically stop the antagonist of the Joker from taking over Arkham Asylum and defeat Batman. The opening gets straight to the point and instantly sets the foundation of the story and introduces you to pretty much all the main characters very early on, which I was quite surprised at. You start off as Batman of course, who has already captured the Joker, and the Joker being an insane person who doesn't seem to care too much.
Not so tight, boys. You'll crease the suit.
Laughing it off and telling jokes. However, it's clear that he won't be captured for that long and he knows his exact plan, which is what happens very quickly. The Joker defeats the guards and is free to start his mission, now with his alliance taking over the whole asylum and trying to stop Batman in his path. So quite a simple yet such a good start to the story, and you instantly jump into trying to track down the Joker as Batman. As usual, it's not going to be simple and you meet with the Joker over and over as he constantly sets up traps and always moves on to his next step. The evil plan is presented so well throughout the game that the Joker has carefully set up and planned out for a long time. Going into this game, I knew that the set of antagonists were going to be great, and we've all been aware of the relationship of Batman and the Joker for years. It's so iconic, and this game's set of characters are great. The Joker has always been my favourite villain, and this game doesn't take him down in any way, but I also just love all the Batman villains, which are all present in this game. The Joker mixed with, of course, Harley Quinn. She doesn't have a huge battle between Batman, for example, but you do conveniently bump into her as she jokes with Batman and also sets up traps, basically being an inconvenience and always making Batman overcome a problem in the way of his main goal. But this does make it interesting and of course not as straightforward, which is expected. Overall, I knew her character was going to be great, and that quote-unquote loving relationship with the Joker is presented really well, even though basically he just controls her. Killer Croc you meet quite early on, just like a lot of the characters, and it's not really for a while until you meet him again in a boss fight, which I won't spoil in any way, but it's probably the most unique and definitely the scariest, just because of his character, who they made really well. Instantly shown to you as a really strong, creepy guy, and the fact that you just want it to be over with minimal escape and defense. Poison Ivy is a great character who doesn't necessarily add too much herself, and isn't overly scary in any way. Quite the opposite, really. But later on, it's the Joker who makes her change by controlling her, and it ends in a giant boss fight that she creates. Similar to Croc, really, where you meet with them for the first time and it's not anything crazy, but then later on you end up with a boss fight with them. The best thing about this dynamic is that Batman is pretty much figuring out and battling everyone by himself, which just tops it all off, and makes him as a character so special and fun to play as. Overall, the story can be seen as straightforward at first, but the constant moments that stop you in your path, like other villains and traps spread throughout, it switches focus to a new pathway and makes you, as a player, feel the urge to progress further. Now, in terms of the overall setting and world of Arkham Asylum, the atmosphere is top class. Not really any complaints, and it fully captures that eerie and dark mood which you spend the whole game in, knowing that you're under the trap of the Joker and want to end his plan. Some people may prefer the more open world style, as this game did sort of remind me of Resident Evil in the sense that it's so linear, which is what I loved in RV2, for example. So many constricted areas and enclosed spaces, which the game makes you fight in, and it's something about this style of action adventure that really captures the mood of the setting, which was so well done in the movies as well. I believe they branch out a bit more in the later games, just like a lot of the aspects in this game, and I can't wait to see the upgrades. As I mentioned, this is the remastered version of the game, which means it holds up even more in present day, and I was surprised at how incredible it looked. Really a lot of detail, and the lighting isn't bad for an old game. For some reason, the quality of the cutscenes and loading screens aren't as high res, but it's nothing game breaking and doesn't take away the immersion. I also think if you are thinking about playing this game and know how old it is, then you probably aren't expecting anything insane for the age of it, but it really isn't that bad. And that's where I wrap up my review of Batman Arkham Asylum in 2023. The game definitely still holds up now in almost all aspects. The story will never get old, and I'm really excited to see the extension in the 3 other games. The combat overall is so satisfying and pretty responsive. Yes, there could be more added, which I'm sure we'll see later on. The stealth system is quite simple, yet really good and smooth. An incredible set of characters, though it would have been nice to see some get more screen time and have a bit more interaction. They really did make the story for sure, and of course the world and setting of the asylum looks great in my opinion and captures that atmosphere really well. Some players may want a bit more of the open areas, but I didn't really mind. I had a great experience playing through this game, and if you're thinking about checking it out, I definitely recommend it. If you did enjoy this review, then let me know by tapping that like button down below, and if you enjoy story video games, then I have various reviews on the channel on a bunch, with a playlist of a series I've done in the description. Thank you for watching until the very end. This means that next up is Arkham City. Until then, bye bye.